Hey guys, in this video we're going to talk about histograms, and before I get to histograms specifically, I want to talk a little bit about how dot plots work so that I can connect your understanding of dot plots or line plots to how histograms work. So just to review dot plots real quick, let's pretend that these little smiley face erasers are students. Each one represents a student. So I give everyone one of these smiley face erasers and I say, how many pets do you have? And over here I have a graph that shows 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I say, put your dot above how many pets you have. So students can go in and they can just place their dots So here's an example of what one of these might look like. So I can see that each one of these represents a student, and these two students don't have pets. I can see there's 5 students that each have 1 pet. I can see these 2 kids have 2 pets each. There are 3 kids that have 3 pets, so there's 2 kids that each have 4 pets, and there's that one kid with 5. That's how a dot plot works. I can also see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 students in this class. Now, histograms work a little bit differently. So let's say I asked a question of how many states have you visited? So how many US states have you been to? Well, if I took everyone's data and said, okay, this kid visited 4 states and that kid visited 6 states and this kid visited 10 states, and I wanted to put it in a graph, I'd have a lot of bars. I would have 50 if it went that high, right? If somebody visited all 50 states, but that's a lot of data. So instead I can clump the data together into groups, and these groups are broken into ranges. So for example, I have states visited and I have ranges of 5. So if anyone has visited between 1 and 5 states, well, they would fit into this range. Anyone that's visited from 6 to 10 states would fall into this range. And anyone that's visited from 11 to 15 states would fall into this range, and et cetera up to 50. But for this sake, I just went up to 30. So each one of these categories is kind of like a bucket that you fit into. You'll notice that they're each the same amount of states. They have to be. So this is 5, 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 and this is 5. Now I can make those however many I wanted. I could have made them 2. I just made them 5 just because, you know, it's 5s and it's easier. So now if I gave everyone one of these and I said, put whichever one you fall into. So for example, students would say, well, I visited 4 and I visited 12 and I visited 9 and I visited 14, etc. Okay, so you get the idea. Let's just pretend that this is our class here. So now I can see that these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 students visited somewhere between 1 and 5 states, so they fell into this range. These 4 students fell into this range. These 2 students fell into that range. These 3 students fell into that range, and this 1 student fell into that range. So there's a couple things that make reading a histogram different from reading, let's say, a line plot or a bar graph. So first of all, histograms are actually bars, so I'm gonna go ahead and make these bars. Okay. And actually this one should be a little bit lower. Should be kind of equal with the other 2s. There we go. So histograms are bar graphs, and the bars are touching one another because there's a continuous scale on the axis. It goes up from one to the next. So as one category ends, the next one begins, and there's no break in between. A bar graph is more like separate categories. Like if I said, hey, which elementary school did you go to? And you said, I went to Sugartown. Another kid said, I went to KDM. Well, then those are separated categories, and the bars would show up separated. But in a histogram, everyone has seen a certain number of states, and it goes from one range directly to the next range. Now, some things that I can see on this, I can still see like, wow, most of the class has visited between 1 and 10 states, right? Only 1 kid in the class has visited somewhere between 26 and 30. So this is group data, and it's not as specific. For example, these 3 kids right here all visited between 16 and 20 states, but I can't tell exactly how many states each one of them visited. This little kid right here, he could have visited 20, he could have visited 16, he could have visited 17. I'm not really sure. I just know that he fits into this range. So it's a little bit different because it's not as specific in terms of how many states did these individual kids see. I don't know. I just know which category they fall in, or which range they fall in, I should say. I can also see on this graph that this blank is actually empty for a reason. No students fell into that category. If even one kid had fallen into there, like I'll just put a kid in here, then there would be an equal block there. But for the sake of keeping this the same, I'll erase that. And there should be a break. A break in a histogram means there's nobody in that category. I can also still tell how many kids are in the class. Like this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 kids in the class. But on a histogram, these won't actually be here. Instead, you'll have on the axis over here, you'll have a frequency. It says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then this of course was 6. So get rid of those. On a real histogram, you won't be able to see those dots. You'll just see these bars, and you'll have to see, okay, so this is a 1, so that means 1 kid fell into this category. This is a 2, because 2 kids fell into this grouping. This is a 3, so 3 kids fell into this range. And this is a 4, 4 kids fell into this range. And this is a 6, 6 kids fell into this range. And with that information, I can still say, okay, there's 6 kids here, there's 4 kids here, so that's 10. 2 and 3 is another 5, so that's 15. There's 16 kids in this class. I can see there's 16 kids in the class. I can see that 6 kids visited between 1 and 5 states. I can see that 4 kids visited between 6 and 10 states. I can see 2 kids visited between 11 and 15 states, etc. Now, it's just important to remember there's certain things you can tell, like I don't know how many kids visited 11 states. If someone told me, hey, 2 kids visited 11 states, is that true? I don't know. It might be true because there's 2 kids that fell into that range, but it doesn't have to be true. So just be careful because some questions will try to trip you up and say something like, is it true that 1 kid visited 26 states? And that might be true. So just be careful because if it says it has to be true, what must be true? 26, maybe, maybe not. I'm not sure. Okay. Reality is the 1 kid in that range may have visited 27 states or 29 states or even 30 states. I can't tell. I just know that he falls into that range. If someone said, hey, did 1 kid visited 21 states? Well, I know that answer is not true because nobody even fell into that range. So there's some specific data that histograms don't show you. It's more generalizable data for a continuous scale. Another example could be, you could be asked how many students visited more than 10 states, or maybe even at least 11 states. They're both the same question. I would start with the 11 to 15 range because that's the first time it's more than 10 or at least 11. And there's 2 kids in that range. There's also 3 kids in the 16 to 20 range. And there's also that 1 student that's in the 26 to 30 range. So altogether, there are 6 students that visited at least 11 states, or there are 6 students that visited more than 10 states. I hope this helps. See you out there.